Good evening. You're in tune to Thursday Night Watch, and this is Adama thanking you for being right where you are in this now moment of eternity. At the top of the hour, we started out with Fertile Grounds, Living the Light, followed by Come In Out of the Dark by Gloria Estefan, Journey to the Light by Brainstorm, Sunshine by Earth, Wind and Fire, Everybody Loves the Sunshine by Roy Ayers, Shine by Luther Vandross, and Joe Johnson's My Life. For those of you who are tuning into Thursday Night Watch for the very first time, I welcome you and pray that you are encouraged and inspired to meet me here every Monday from midnight to 6 a.m. and Thursday nights from midnight to 3. For those of you who are tuning via the World Wide Web, WRFG.org, I am so grateful that you prefer to be right here with us than any other place on the planet. For those of you who are tuning via your phone apps, radio apps, then thank you for using the technology towards your greater good. And for those of you who are the inner circle, the ones who make sure that you're always attuned to this frequency anytime that I'm on air or anytime that I'm speaking, you're always there. I'm so grateful and so appreciative and always in prayer that you are being ever more inspired, ever more motivated, ever more encouraged, ever more of the more that you truly are. Anytime I come to the airways, I am always speaking to the issues of our liberation, our resurrection, the prerequisites for our being qualified for continuance in existence. And it is about living in the light, standing in the reality of being in the presence of that absolute and supreme intelligence, whose intelligence is all there is as existence itself. For the light is the only victory possible, the only sovereignty over the darkness, the chaos, the sickness, the oblivion, the gloom, that which is the world-conquering rampage to have us divided and conquered, so that we, as a global humanity, are no longer properly oriented in realizing the oneness that we already are in. And we have to be reminded that our lives are our gifts and there is no greater gift. That we who live in this now moment are the beneficiaries of the gifts and the lives and the sacrifices, the realizations, the revelations, the epiphanies, the victories, the triumphs, the service, the labor, the ingenuity, the talent, the skills, the abilities, the wisdoms, the intellectual property of so many ones that we would never be able to name all of the ones whose lives are already benefiting us. The issue for us is to be in a place where we are intensely intentional in being the ones that we are, in laying foundation for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and all of those who've yet to come, on behalf of all of those who have come before us and the ones that we've come through. So even though we have our individual trials and triumphs and victories and challenges, there is absolute law that governs all of life itself. Absolute law that lays foundation for the peace, the delight, the joy, the rejoicing, the healing, the wholeness, the salvation, the deliverance. And as we are intensely intentional in being completely cleared of our violations, our transgressions, our trespasses, and to be in a place where we are consistently letting all that stuff roll off of us like water off a duck's back, to be in a place where our hearts are getting lighter and lighter, so that we are responding correctly and directly to what the need is in our now moment, which is to be truly revivified in the light of the truth of the all that we each are, as these living, loving, intelligent, potent, and immortal points of that absolute and supreme intelligence, whose intelligence is absolute and supreme. It is beginningless, endless, infinite, and eternal. It is all pervasive, it is ever present, it fills all spaces, and we are each so gifted and so blessed to dwell in the reality of its presence. And being present as its presence, being very mindful that we are these points of that presence, is that which allows us to stay focused, to get focused, stay focused, and be in a place where each and every day we are truly progressing in uncovering, self-discovering, self-realizing, self-actualizing, and being harmonized within the will of existence, following the laws of existence, exalting a full life's urge, mastering ourselves and our emotions and our lusts and desires and passions and whatnot. We are upon the planet to have the experience of evolutionary soul development while we are on the planet, so that when we're leaving the planet, we have graduated the class of Earth residency. We need not continue to feel as though the only thing that we have to look forward to is the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, and having to die each time we live so that we can come and live again and go through that whole process again, when the reality for us is that we are already present with lifetimes of experience, lifetimes of challenge, and now it's time for us to understand how to invoke and call forth the strength of those life's lessons, to be able to truly be benefited by those lessons in this now moment, to realize that there is a real I, an absolute I, that sees through every eye, and that our practicing should not be a practicing of death and disease, but the practicing of dwelling in the presence of the absolute, the practice of being present within the presence of the absolute, and caring to fulfill duty, obligation, and responsibility in shaping ourselves, our character, our virtues, to be harmonious with who we are as these points of the presence of the absolute. And for whatever our situations and circumstances are in this now moment, we've all had something to do with it. And we may have had help in creating whatever we are experiencing, but the reality for us is that we shouldn't be in a place where we allow the situation and circumstance to bear heavy on us so that we have forgotten, or we are in a momentary lapse of acknowledging, dwelling in the presence of the absolute, and understanding that our blessing is the gift of being present in the presence of the absolute. And that requires a conscious care to dwell there, to lift your mind there, to turn things off that discourage you and oppress you and suppress you and depress you and put you in a vibration where you are attuned to all of the degradation and the deprivation and the starvation and the killing and the murder and the violations and whatnot. Because the more you focus on all of that, then it becomes very difficult for you to really acknowledge the order of existence when you are focusing on all of the disorder. And it matters our perspective, because as these points of an absolute and supreme intelligence, we dwell on this massive spaceship called Mother Earth. But as big as she is only as big as the period at the end of a sentence in relationship to the rest of all there is as existence itself. And so for whatever the chaos and disorder that we may see from the limited frame of reference that we have while we're on the planet, we are at the same time immersed in nothing but absolute order and law. And there's much more of that order and law than there is chaos. And the chaos only exists as a result of the violation of the law and the order, and that it will not continue indefinitely because everything has to come to order. And we all have the opportunity to participate in being ordered as we consciously seek to do the clearing, the cleansing, the purification, so that we are cellularly liberated, as the methodology of oppression has been to oppress us at our cellular functioning, being made out of trillions of cells that are water-based and intelligence. And intelligence has its own perfection. And in order for us to have leverage over situations and circumstances and conditions and a world-conquering rampage that is depopulation and divisiveness and genocide and whatnot, then we have to be very, very mindful, very intensely intentional in focusing on the absolute reality, as opposed to our being consistently drawn into the temporary, the temporal, the corporal, that which will find its end. And for those of us who are in maturity, and even those who have not come to maturity, based upon how we're living on a day-to-day basis, we are laying foundation for not only the substance and the quality of our lives or the lack thereof, we are laying foundation for how we are leaving the planet also. And we all recognize that leaving the planet is destiny, but we are not all necessarily realizing that we should not be leaving the planet through the doors of death, per se. And this is a very key component of where we have to consider things, because we may have already lived over half our lives. And if we have not been living exalting a full life's urge, if we have not been focused on dwelling in the presence of this absolute and supreme intelligence, if we have not been mindful of the oneness of existence and the oneness of humanity, regardless of hue of people and ethnicity and religious orientation and socialization and education and economics and whatnot, if we have been distracted and have been divided within ourselves and undermining ourselves, then we've got to come to a point where if we care, and I do care, I care for me, I care for you too, understand that we are coming to a point where we are gaining greater and greater inspiration, motivation, strength, and determination to be in a place where we are truly living, exalting a full life's urge, doing nothing to undermine ourselves, consciously caring to invest in ourselves, in investing in ourselves. We are no longer participating in the anesthetization, inebriation, the intoxication, and the violation of our own bloodstream and our own body temples. That this is the way that we are able to affect the greatest or most expeditious harmonization that's possible without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars in airplane tickets and conferencing and workshops and all of that, because the bottom line is that wherever we are, We always have the opportunity with each and every breath and every beat of our hearts to attune ourselves to that which beats our hearts and that which breathes us. We have so much confusion going on in that I have had several conversations with people over these last few days since I was on air Monday night, Tuesday, before day. And people are online doing all of this research and still being in a state of confusion as to what they should do for themselves. And so when we care to really know the truth and see it, we have to set a precedent, because you can spend so much time reading and reading and reading and reading other people's thoughts and opinions and theories and all of that, but it is going to be the greater good of you where you are wholeheartedly, absolutely committed to absolute truth. And you are on fire for absolute truth. Because we were told to know the truth, and the truth would make us free. And that is not the same as doing all kinds of research and having all kinds of information and knowledge. Seeking education is not the same thing as having a wholehearted desire for absolute truth. Doing research online is not the same thing as having a wholehearted, intensely intentional, uncompromising, unwavering desire for absolute truth. Because that energy of desire for the truth gives you a whole nother degree of opportunity to come to that which is the truth, as opposed to just coming into other people's research and information and depending upon their ability to make the proper references or inferences for whatever information or knowledge or education that they themselves pursued. And they may not have ever pursued the absolute truth. So we're in a place now where it matters what we're asking for. It matters what we're seeking. It matters what we're attuning ourselves to. And that's why I make it my business that when I come to these airways, I am not coming to deal with just all of the foolishness of the politics and all of this, even though I am consciously seeking to connect the dots between the politics and the lawlessness and the amount of sickness, illness, and disease that we are experiencing as a global humanity as a result of we having so many ones who are vying for selection and election as government, but they have not applied themselves to the absolute truth. The absolute truth in terms of what the purpose of being on the planet is, the absolute truth as to who they are upon the planet and what their greater gifts are in terms of knowing the will of existence, that we all have purpose in creating, facilitating, and participating with the wholeness of existence itself. Nobody is authorized by the intelligence of existence or the Creator's will to be the legislators and perpetuators of sickness, illness, disease, and death as livelihood. This should not be our contribution to this life as a generation to have been complicit and complacent with our own genocide because we refuse to clean ourselves up. We refuse to exalt a full life's urge. We refuse to transcend, transform, and transmute situations and circumstances into our greater good by coming to a point where we were intensely intentional in being restored, in being completely cleared and cleansed, purified, renewed, rebirthed, regenerated, revivified, and resurrected as these points of an absolute and supreme intelligence. And we cannot wait and depend upon those who are out of alignment, those who have not shown that they have any real love and care for the law. We cannot depend upon those who are in government and those who are in education and those who are upholding the churches and those ones who are out of alignment. We cannot look to them for that which is guidance towards being restored. in the light of the truth of that which we truly are as these living, loving, intelligent, potent, and immortal points of absolute and supreme intelligence. So I am consciously sharing with those who will reach for me for life support to remind them that you are first a spirit that dwells in that body, and you are here to align yourself with the laws of God, the ways of God, the virtue and characters of God, so that you can be who you are as the God or goddess that dwells in that temple. We are not here as eating machines. We are not here to indulge ourselves in every wickedness that is possible, so that at the end of 40, 50, 60, 70 years of being in the path of adulteration, then there's nothing of us left. That is not destiny. That's the tragic date with fate as a result of being programmed and miseducated, disoriented towards the purposes of existence itself. And so where we consciously seek to be whole, where we consciously seek to be healed, where we consciously seek to be in a place and space where our life has real purpose, it has real substance, it has real meaning and significance in our now moment, to honor and glorify that which is beating our hearts and that which is breathing us on behalf of those whose genealogy we have inherited. You understand? See, our genetic inheritance in our DNA is where the root of our prosperity really lies. And because we have been socialized to feed off the flesh of dead animals, the aborted fetuses of chickens, the pus and mucus of cows, artificially colored, artificially flavored, NutraSweet, MSG, aspartame, equal, Splenda, white sugar, alcohol, tobacco, beer, all of this stuff, it puts us on a DNA lockdown where we are not able to access the fullness of the gifts that we have come into this world with. And so as we are doing the cellular clearing, cleansing, and purification, so that we are working consciously, harmoniously towards our own liberation as whole beings directly, then we have to consecrate ourselves towards the purposes of existence. It is not enough to be scared by what the doctors have said in the diagnosis and be filled to a disdain because you're on so many meds and you've just tired of being on meds. See, that will motivate you to change your life, but it is not necessarily going to be enough to give you the oomph that you need in order to do your due diligence on a daily basis in clearing, cleansing, purifying, renewing, consecrating, which is the commitments you're making to walk in the light of the truth of the absolute and supreme intelligence that you indeed are. You understand? Because everything don't get you the same thing. When we're dealing with absolute law, it matters what you're asking for. It matters what you have a value for. And when we don't have a value for ourselves, except by virtue of the things that man has made that we can possess or that we can add to ourselves, add to our resumes, add to our bank account, our net worth, you understand? That is what is part of the issue in terms of our not being supported in self-unfoldment, self-actualization, our not being properly educated to have an understanding and an understanding as to what the purpose of being on the planet is. This is why we have to commit ourselves wholeheartedly with each and every breath and every beat of our hearts towards being fully realigned and reattuned to the laws of existence directly, because this is where the clearing, the cleansing, the purification, this is where the healing, this is where the happiness, this is where the delight and the joy and the prosperity, this is where the focus comes, this is where the maturation and the maturity and real eldership and wisdom and light This is the path to our deliverance after being under siege for generations. In order to be successful in this life, you have to come into the integrity of your true self. There are those who have made it their business to shape our understanding about what success is, about setting goals and having a plan and following the plan and doing business and all of that. And people do all of that without ever having made commitments to really honoring and glorifying the intelligence of themselves. We can get through school and get through college and get through all of these other supposedly higher echelons of education and matriculation in the educational system that never properly oriented us as to who and what we are as human beings, what is our capacity, what are our capabilities, and how do we have optimum cellular functioning so that we are able to tap the 100% of our brain capacity. Nobody has properly oriented us in fulfilling duty, obligation, and responsibility in self-actualizing. And so we have to do this for ourselves. And there is so much available to us now. So many ones who are making their realizations, their revelations, their epiphanies, their information and whatnot available. But it is still going to be based upon your own inner work, your own clearing, your own cleansing, your own purification, your kicking everybody out of your body temple that does not belong there in terms of the amount of nitrates and nitrites and BHA and BHT and all of the chemicals and all of the worms and the parasites and the organisms and the viruses and the bacteria and all of those things that have set up their living in your body temple. Insulated in all of the excess mucus and all of the fat, in all of the excess waste. And we have to be willing to get to the essence of ourselves. Willing and caring to come to our most potent selves, our most powerful selves, our most dynamic selves, our most divine selves, in order to truly be successful here. Based upon being under a world-conquering rampage that is genocide, that is divisiveness. And we cannot do anything against ourselves or anybody else. We can no longer feel entitled to support the violation of other beings and then feed off their body parts and think that because we like how that makes us feel, it gives us some girth and some heaviness and some muscle and some fullness. It is no justification for why it is that you would bring violation and charge that violation upon your own bloodstream. And I know that there are those, and I've talked to some of the youth this week, who are like not feeling that there is any law. You understand? And that's the trick. To put us in position where you think that because you're doing research online and you can find that other people's research that justifies why you should be eating the flesh of a dead animal, that is the truth. And that's why I'm saying is that we have to have a wholehearted desire for the truth and to know that the truth is not going to undermine us in the long run. And to know that information, knowledge, and belief systems and whatnot are not sufficient for our wholeness and our healing. That the commitment towards wholeness and healing has to be there. not just to information. The commitment to law has to be there. The commitment to light has to be there. The commitment to truth has to be there. The commitment to cleansing and being cleared spiritually, emotionally, and mentally has to be there. We are whole beings. We are not just body parts. And the whole is greater than the parts, the sum of the parts. So it matters your orientation. It matters what you're asking for. It matters what you're saying into yourselves. It matters that you are in a place mentally and spiritually and emotionally where it matters to you. That you walk in the fullness of the all that you are as living, loving, intelligent, potent, and immortal point of absolute and supreme intelligence, and that you are willing to do whatever it takes to be an honor and a glory to the lineages that you represent, on behalf of the intelligence that beats your heart and that breathes you. In alignment with that which is necessary for our true salvation and deliverance in our now moment of eternity. You're in tune to Thursday Night Watch, the meeting of the inner circle. And this is Adama, your voice of resurrection.
Night Watch on 89.3 FM, WRFG, Atlanta.